Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Suit Up, the Warframe frame review series. Now I can hear the shop from here, and I agree, it's been too long since I've released one of these videos. However, the format of this week is something I want to do for each of the frames I've not done a review on, with the review of the augments followed by a look at the frame at the end of the week. So as you've probably worked out by now by the 3 augments I've reviewed this week, in this video we're going to be finally taking a look at Equinox. Now when you initially look at her, you see the base stats: average health and shield of 300 at rank 30, mid-tier armour of 100 which isn't really enough to do anything with, and an average energy pool of 150 at rank 30. She does have an above average sprint speed of 1.15 though, which means she's pretty decently manoeuvrable. So with these stats being so distinctly average, with no one stat standing out as to one to be modded for, that means her abilities are what makes her what she is. Now of course that's true, but on Equinox, this is more true than a lot of frames. Now just a quick little thing about how to farm Equinox before we launch into looking at her powers. To be able to get hold of her, you need to farm the Tilragor boss fight on Titania Uranus. However, you need to get hold of not only the day and night aspect blueprint, but also the helmet, chassis and systems for both day and night, meaning that you need to farm 8 blueprints from the boss before being able to actually build Equinox, making her easily the most time-consuming frame to farm outside of any of the primes, as well as one of the most expensive and longest builds. Equinox's first ability is Metamorphosis, where she'll transform between her night and day form, giving different bonuses for 25 seconds at max, which can be increased with the use of duration mods. Her night form will give an additional 250 armour and 150 shields, which does decay over time. Her day form, she'll gain an additional 25% weapon damage and 15% movement speed that, like the night form, decays over time. Both day and night form are affected by power strength to be able to push those bonuses even higher. Now, Metamorphosis does come with an augment I have reviewed this week, Duality, to which I will leave the link in the description below if you haven't seen it. Now honestly, I don't really use Metamorphosis to keep the buffs running on, because when you switch from one form to the other, it resets all the abilities you've got active. So if you've stacked a ton of damage on Maim, or stacked the slow from Pacify, with the augment on Pacify, then switching resets all of that and you've got to build it all up again. So for the most part I stick to one discipline and until I really need to switch. The bonuses from Metamorphosis are fantastic, but it works just so awkwardly with the other abilities, the abilities that really need time to build up, that I don't really use the switch specifically for the bonuses, only when I want to switch from her day to night form and vice versa for the actual abilities, but not really the bonuses themselves. Her second ability is Rest for the night form and Rage for the day. Now you really couldn't get 2 more polar opposite abilities if you tried. When in night form, Equinox will put enemies to sleep in a 5 meter radius around the target, while they'll be asleep for 22 seconds. This will open targets up to melee finishers, meaning it can trigger arcane trickery, and also to stealth damage multipliers, meaning it's a perfect candidate for a covert lethality dagger. Now the enemies will remain asleep until they receive 50% damage to their health. This part of the ability is affected by both range and duration. Now Rage is a pretty simple ability as well. When cast, enemies in a radius of the target take 50% more damage from all damage. As a trade-off, the enemy has 20% increased movement and melee attack speed for the duration. Now using this on heavier targets to take them down quicker is a fantastic use of this ability, which can be buffed with not only range and duration mods like the Rest, but also with power strength, which increases the damage vulnerability, but also that movement speed downside. In addition to that, the power strength buff from Provoke as well as its augment increases the damage vulnerability. Now Rest and Rage, like Metamorphosis, also comes with an augment that I reviewed earlier this week, the link to which is in the description below. Now its ability is absolutely fantastic. Despite its small area of effect, the utility from Sleep, especially when combined with the augment, and the damage boost on targets of opportunity using Rage, is it's such a useful ability no matter what form you're in, day or night. But, you know, keep switching to make the most of these abilities depending on the situation, and that is where a good Equinox player becomes an incredible one. Equinox's third ability is Pacify in night form and Provoke in day form. Now Pacify is Equinox's bread and butter defensive skill. She projects an aura around herself which reduces all incoming damage by up to 50% depending on how close the enemy is to her. Enemies on the edge of the radius suffer from less of a damage reduction than the ones closer to the frame. Now the ability drains energy depending on how many enemies are in the radius of the ability, which is 0.5 energy per enemy. Now the ability is affected by a whole bunch of things. Power strength increases the damage reduction from each enemy, range increases the range of the ability, plus power efficiency actually drops the cost per enemy inside the aura. Now it's also worth mentioning that the ability is a toggled ability. It's either on or off, but it's not a true toggle because neither energy siphon or Xenuric energy regen is disabled, meaning that it can help offset the energy drain per enemy. Provoke is way more simple than Pacify. Basically, Equinox emits an aura that gives all allies within that aura extra power strength when they cast abilities, at the cost of energy drain for every ability activated within the aura. This ability is once again affected by range and efficiency, much in the same way as Pacify, however it is affected by power strength. The power strength bonus that Provoke can give is capped at 50% extra, so that is something to bear in mind if you are modding specifically for the power strength. As with the previous two abilities, Pacify and Provoke comes with an augment, Peaceful Provocation, which is possibly my favourite augment in the game right now, and the link is in the description below. This ability is one of those that people underestimate quite a bit. They write off the energy drain as far too high without actually properly playing with it. It's really not that difficult to keep the ability up constantly at all, and the damage reduction with the slow, or potentially 80% power strength when you combine it with the augment is incredible. Not only a huge buff to Equinox when in night form, but also a true team play with that slow, or the power strength bonus for the entire team when in day form. An incredible ability, seriously powerful when used correctly. Now her fourth and final ability is called Mend in Night Form, Maim in Day. Both are pretty simple abilities, they do have a few bits and pieces to them. Mend, for example, is the Night Form's version. She will create a field around her that will accumulate 75% of the shields and health of an enemy that are killed within this aura and store them. Whenever the ability is deactivated, she will unleash that stored damage as a heal that will affect all allies, spectres, sentinels, restores hit points shared between all available targets in range. The HP split will prioritise health, and then any remaining damage stored will be split between friendly shields. At higher level, even a single enemy kill will more often than not charge Mend up to the point where it will not only be a full heal for Equinox, but also all of her allies. Now the important thing to remember is that power strength has no effect on Mend whatsoever. Range, however, affects the range of the aura, and since it's a true toggleable ability, you need both efficiency and duration to keep the cost down as much as possible. Now, the other half of this ability is Maim, where once again Equinox deploys an aura around her, storing 75% of enemy HP killed inside the aura, which when released, this time, splits the damage stored between every enemy in the radius of the ability. However, unlike Mend, Maim actually does do damage on its own, 150 slash damage, with a 100% status chance, giving this some decent crowd control, since slash procced enemies stagger when they get the initial proc. Like Mend, it's affected by range and duration in the same way, however Maim is also affected by power strength. But while it doesn't increase the percentage of damage converted, that is capped at 75%, it does increase the damage of the Maim aura, and also increases damage done by the slash procs. Now, while Mend doesn't really have any good strategies to make the most of it, Maim has an extremely effective one called Maim Trading. Now, you've seen me do this before a couple of times in the endurance runs, where one Equinox builds up their Maim for quite a few rounds, and then unleashes it while close to the other Equinox, who also has Maim active. What happens then is that the damage is split between the enemies. If they die, the damage is then added to the second Maim. Now this is a bit tricky to do. You must make sure that you've got a decent number of enemies around, since it's only going to take their max HP, and even then only 75% of it. So a bad Maim trade can actually put you back quite a bit. Maim can also be used to interact with, or used to be able to interact with Sonar insanely well as well, for really mental slash procs. But this doesn't seem to work anymore, sadly, which is a real shame. But it was ridiculously strong. You could have like 400,000 damage from slash procs. It was really silly. However, Maim trading still works fine. So used effectively, Mend can be a fantastic team heal. Not quite Trinity level, obviously, because it's got a limited range, but a fantastic thing to have with you in your team, especially if you're rotating your powers, using the damage from Maim combined with the power strength buff from Provoke, or damage reduction combined with the heal from Mend and Pacify. Yeah, these two abilities can really push a really good Equinox into a fantastic one, a real team frame. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod Equinox. Now, she comes with a V in the Aurora and a D and a V as standard. Going to add 3 form, which is going to be another D, a V, and a dash. Now, I've got 3 very different builds for Equinox that do very differing things. This one is basically my sleep melee build. Often I'll, combine this with like a covert lethality dagger or something. So we've got Energy Siphon here in the Aura. In the Exilus, we've got Cunning Drift for extra range, which we're going to combine with Overextended to give us 205% power range. We've got Intensify, which is going to keep our damage up just a little bit for rage, should we actually need it. Prime Continuity to keep our duration up a bit as well, to help with the duration, obviously, of the sleep. We've got Prime Flow for extra energy, Fleeting Expertise and Streamline to make everything as cheap as possible. We've got Karma and Frenzy in here, which is the augment, which is going to cause the spread of the sleep when we actually use it, as well as rage if we actually go into day form. And I've gone for Vitality. The reason I do this is because I often combine this with something like Life Strike on the dagger. Just in case I do take a hit, I can actually use the Vitality just to absorb that hit slightly. I feel very, very exposed when I don't have a Vitality on a frame. This is personal preference, mind you. You can go with Redirection if you want to. I just feel very exposed to Slash Procs when I don't have Vitality on. So, personally, I go for the Vitality over the Redirection. As I say, completely personal preference on this one. But basically, the way to play this one would just be keep casting your rest. Make sure they all go to sleep. Keep spreading it using the Calm and Frenzy augment, and basically combine that with something like the Naramon Master Race with Shadow Step, which means that you can be cloaked pretty much constantly. This is actually a very, very, very strong melee build for Equinox. If you want to go this route, you can also combine it. You don't have to use a dagger. I do, because obviously self-finishes count towards covert lethality, but this is just a sort of personal preference kind of thing. Now, for my main build, this is pretty much my main build. I've got Corrosive Projection in here. This could obviously, because the thing is, Energy Siphon is completely disabled, so I go with Corrosive Projection up here. Obviously, if you were in a group or against the Infested, where it doesn't really matter, you could switch that out for something like Enemy Radar, which, if you're doing the main trading, really does help a lot. So we've got in here, we're going to go as much power strength as possible, really. We've got Power Drift in here, Blind Rage and Intensify. I go with Blind Rage over Transient because of the duration. I want to keep a little bit of duration in there just to help with the drain. I know Blind Rage is going to drain more, but personally I don't feel that this build is too power hungry. It's fairly easy to keep up, and it's, once again, personal preference, but I prefer Blind Rage over Transient Fortitude in this situation. Once again, Prime Continuity to keep the duration up a bit to help with the drain. Prime Flow for extra energy. I've gone with the Max Fleeting and obviously Streamline for the efficiency. And we've got Vitality on here once again, because often I do take this up against the Infested. So obviously Toxin procs / procs from everything. I feel Vitality in this case, for me personally, is better than Redirection. Obviously personal preference once again. This is definitely one of those mods that could be changed either way for, Redirection if you wanted to. And for this one, this is pretty much my everyday build. I use this on basically everything. I use this for raids actually all the time. So we're going to do Redirection and Vitality to make this as tanky as possible. Just again, personal preference. Prime Continuity for duration, to keep the duration up at least a little bit. Transient Fortitude, which is going to give us power strength, combined with Power Drift, which is going to give us extra power strength. And we got Peaceful Provocation on here as well, which is going to give us that slow when we block damage, to allies in the aura around us. So this is definitely another way of doing it. We've got stretch on here to try and expand the field of the slow and of the damage reduction, and obviously of your heal and maim depending on whether you switch to it. And fleecing expertise, gone with a max fleecing expertise. I know it drops duration down a little bit, but since I'm going very tight on the build here, this definitely is something that I felt was definitely useful. I didn't really feel the duration loss, at least personally anyway, on my channeling abilities, so maim and mend. But yeah, this build is pretty much my everyday build. Works absolutely fine for me. It might look a little weird, I have to admit. It looks like one of those builds that really sort of shouldn't really work, but it does work very, very well. And like I say, this is pretty much my everyday build, my sortie build, everything I do with this build. And it works absolutely perfectly for me. So yeah, these are the 3 different builds, 3 different ways, very different ways of playing Equinox. But yeah, like I say, this one is very much my everyday build. And this one will be main build, and this one is very much my sort of covert lethality, Naramon kind of hybrid build. Definitely, focus more around melee than anything else. So do I think Equinox is worth that insane farm for her? Then the resources to build into max? The answer is hell yes, I do. I'll be the first to admit, Equinox is one of those frames I didn't play regularly. I didn't really get to know her powers when she first came out, and when I did use her, it was for some super specific reason like main trading and that combination with Sona that we used a few times in endurance runs. But recently, she got her first batch of augments. I went back, started playing her again, and honestly I wish I'd played her a hell of a lot more beforehand. She brings so much to a team, either defensively with rest putting enemies to sleep, pacify giving damage reduction and now a slow with the augment, a heal from mend, or being played offensively with damage increase from rage, power strength increase for the entire team, and a massive damage output from maim. Equinox can fill any role, and played well, Equinox can fill 2 roles at once, with some creative switching between the 2 forms. Now she is by no means an easy frame to play, and she does take some time to get used to when to switch, which powers to use and when. But once you master that, you can be an invaluable member of any team. Keeping an eye on squishier players' health, give them a heal every now and again. If your own sentinel is low on health, give it a heal. Friendlies surrounded by enemies and looking like they're about to go down, put all those enemies to sleep with rest. The possibilities for creative play from a good player are endless. Maybe this is the reason why I didn't really get to play her before. I didn't give it time to fully get the hang of playing her. Plus she does require quite a bit of concentration to be able to do the right thing at the right time. But now I've gone back and started playing with her again, I've not put her down. She's become my go-to frame for just about everything. Been using her constantly for the sorties, and really being an asset to the team with her. So Equinox, played in either form, she is fantastic, but when played to take advantage of both forms, she is a world beater. A frame that you always want on your team, well worth the farm and the time to get to know her abilities. She is one of the best, most well-rounded and skillful frames in the game. Now okay guys, I hope you enjoyed the return to Suit Up. It's been a very long time coming. It's been delayed for a few days sadly due to a quick stay in hospital plus high winds making it impossible to record. As you can hear, my mic basically picks up pretty much everything now as I have upgraded it recently. But I would love to hear your feedback as to what I could improve for the next episode. The format I tried to do this in, where I did the augment reviews and then do the Suit Up at the end of the week, is something I want to try and continue. Although, as I said, for the reasons I said earlier, it wasn't possible this time around. But I also want to say that I am going to be live streaming this evening, the 16th of February, to celebrate the release of Sarin Prime. So I'll be farming her on stream with you all from 8 PM GMT onwards. So I hope to see you all there. And as always, many thanks for watching. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, it helps me out a ton. And I shall see you in the next episode.